Hello and welcome StarCraft 2 viewers, and welcome to another amateur cast done by myself, Kopo, on the Gaming Canucks YouTube channel. Tonight our players are Albanese, who's spawning as a red Terran up here at the top position on Shattered Temple. And down here we have Korvan spawning as the blue Protoss at the bottom position on the, just so happens, on the same map. So today we'll be seeing a PvT, played on, obviously, as I already said, Shattered Temple. I've already done a Shattered Temple cast. If anybody has watched that, they'll remember that actually they were spawned in close by air positions. These guys happen to be spawned in cross positions, meaning that any sort of attacking, it takes absolutely forever to get to the other guy's base. Not ideal rush distances if you're trying to do any sort of a quick attack. Protoss could technically place a proxy pylon somewhere near the Terran's base, probably right around this area, be able to warp in units and cut that rush distance down. However, again, this cross position allows for a very macro-oriented game by being so far apart. You don't have to worry about a lot of harass because you're close by air or anything ridiculous like that. So I don't think, judging by the openings here, we'll just see a little bit of scouting done by this probe. Another probe going up here just to double check. Two scouting probes. Cardians is mining a little bit, but not too bad. I don't believe we'll be seeing anything too out of the ordinary. It looks like these guys are opening up pretty standard. Barracks and supply depot starting off the wall in. Probably supply depot here to finish it up. Obviously Terran walls in, happens. Protoss is opening up with a gateway on 13. Nothing super aggressive. Maybe he realizes as well that obviously there's not a whole lot of point because the rush distance is so large. Didn't notice a gas steal down here though. Just noticed a little blue dot on the mini-map over here. Obviously stole his gas. Allows for a little bit of scouting. I guess really it's more of an annoying tactic than anything else. Cost the Protoss 75 minerals, which in the early game is actually pretty important. If you don't cancel it at the last second, those 75 minerals can hurt you substantially in how many units you can put out. I shouldn't say substantially, it can hurt you enough to make it noticeable anyways. Protoss getting his first gas down. Terran's had his first gas down for a little while, but only one harvester on it, keeping his minerals and gas very, very low. First Marine coming out now. Obviously he's going to try and take down that gas to prohibit the Protoss from doing any cheesy-like scouting with that assimilator. Yes, the scouting assimilator does exist, people, and it has only occurred when you can actually manage to do something like this. We have an SCV over here and a probe over here. Neither one really is doing a whole lot. Obviously, their owners have forgotten about them. Probe is now going back. Blue obviously cares a little bit more about his workers than red does. That tender, loving care. Maybe Protoss as a union. Terran hasn't quite followed suit. But that's okay, because his probe will be hopefully returning home. If not, he'll be able to do some additional work for his commanders, leaders, whatever the case may be for Protoss. Should read up on my lore a little bit more, maybe I'll be able to tell you guys. Oh, Probe has actually managed to gain control of this watchtower. I can't really seem to... Oh, there he is. Couldn't seem to find him there for a second, but he had control of the watchtower. SCV came and touched it. And that is all she wrote over there. Back to the base now, we see a Cybernetics core with Warp Gate being researched, probably about a quarter done. Or if this time of the game, nothing too out of the ordinary. We see two barracks and a factory being dropped now for the Terran. It's got all Marines, full bore on that simulator until it decided to finally fall. 2 racks factory opening. 2 racks pressure can be very intimidating. We'll probably see, actually a reactor, not a tech lab going up there, so maybe no early stim. Actually, no tech lab, I guess, no early stim. That's almost a guaranteed. Probably not a very Marine Marauder heavy ball then. I'd say the early factory, probably more Hellions, maybe some siege tanks, depending on what tech path he decides to follow up with. We see 2 more gateways being dropped down by the Protoss. It's got 3 gates down now. Unless he'll either drop another gateway or maybe a robotics facility. 3-gate robo, obviously a very, 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 and when I say very 4 times, it means very standard opening by Protoss. See another factory coming down for Albanese. Reactor on this barracks usually indicates some heavy Marines. I don't see any Marines though. And 2 factories. Tech lab finished on the one. Like I said, Hellions are siege tanks. Tech lab probably indicates siege tanks, if not Thors, but I wouldn't bank on Thors. 2 factories pumping Thors. He wouldn't have the resources to support that off one base. Although maybe we'll see an expansion being dropped by this guy as soon as he gets enough minerals. SCV still out here, very sour about not having a union. 3 gates up here, robotics facility. Hey, look at me, I'm psychic. He dropped a robo, about 4/5 done. Yes, I can do math, fractions are God. See some warpins coming in here, just kind of amassing a force. Didn't see any proxy pylons being dropped, so obviously not going to try and cut that rush distance. Probably just try and build a bit of an army and then force the attack. Although Terran is definitely doing a decent job of macroing up. He's got some Marines, Marauders, and he's got 2 factories down already. Siege tank coming out here. Siege attack not yet being researched, but we do see an expansion being dropped. Like I said, you wouldn't be able to support any sort of heavy Thor play off one base, so maybe he's going 2 base Thors. We see a refinery also being dropped. Heavy gas involved in any sort of mech play, obviously. See some Stalkers and Sentries and 1 Zealot pushing out right now. I read somewhere when I first started playing that the ideal Protoss comp for gateway units was 3 Zealots to every 2 Stalkers to every 1 Sentry. And I do believe he did it backwards. Don't really know what to say about that. We'll see how much success he has, although the force garnered by the Terran so far is fearsome in compared to this paltry little thing. Supplies are pretty even though, so I guess we'll see exactly how this can turn out. I don't have high hopes for the Protoss though. Terran definitely has defender's advantage. Although if he can manage to take out this Expo, that would definitely hurt the Terran's chances to do anything in this game. Come on, stop building it. That needs to be cancelled before it falls. Force field down here to prevent any sort of reinforcements. Very, very good idea by the Protoss. I like that force field. And then he's just going to keep pounding away on this until it decides to fall. It's completed. No longer can he cancel. Stalkers or Sentries will probably just finish this thing off. And that is exactly how this went down. Loss of 400 minerals by the Terran. His refinery's up though. That's always helpful. And all these Terran units are now going to finally be able to move down, but the Protoss is retreating, realizing he did the damage he needed to, and he's not going to be able to take on this army head on. We see another tech lab up here for the factory. Siege tech now being researched, approximately half done. Needs to spend some of those meals, needs to unsupply block himself so he can actually start building more units. Protoss is going to retreat and macro up. Looks like you got that robotics bay for an observer, not a whole lot more. Let's see some immortals out of that. Immortals definitely do a very decent job against tanks, which it looks like the Terran is going fairly heavy into right now, although I don't believe the Protoss has any idea. No, he has no idea what tech path the Terran has chosen to follow, but this observer will tell him very quickly that he should definitely get some protection against those tanks. See expansion being dropped down here by the Protoss, obviously trying to get a base up on the Terran because he realizes that he killed the Terrans, who is now re-expanding down here. Observer coming down here, so he'll be completely aware of this. Will the Protoss? Still some very, very standard play. Warp gate obviously was finished, but nothing too tricky. We just see standard warp pins from 3 warp gates. I'm assuming we'll probably see more gateways once his expansion finishes and both have their economies up and rolling. This observer getting very, very key information on exactly how many siege tanks are protecting this. The difference between 4 siege tanks and 5 siege tanks is the difference between a dead Protoss army and a dead Protoss army. Nothing he has here will be able to contend with that many siege tanks backed up. Especially if, does he have stim? He has stim almost completed actually. I should really look at my production menu more often. I have it up there for a reason. It would be very helpful. I'll work on that. Okay, still just the 4 production facilities from the Protoss. Pylons definitely well spread out around his base. You have a vision everywhere. And he always all these facilities supported off more than 1 pylon, which is always a good idea. If there ever comes a time when the enemy gets into the base, you'd always like to have it so that if they can't just shoot 1 pylon and have all your production facilities fall. I've seen that before, and even pro games. Some pros decide to leech all their production facilities off 1 pylon, and it definitely has been the downfall of more than 1 game I have watched for Protoss. This observer remaining stagnant here, deciding that he is going to gain the most information by staying right where he is, although he hasn't scouted into the main base. He has no idea what tech path the Terran is going. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't really know. All he has to do is move this observer about... how do you count feet in StarCraft? I was going to say 20 feet, but all he has to do is move the observer over here to see 2 factories and not heavy barracks play. We see a starport going up now. That observer could tell him so much, and right now all it's telling him is exactly how many siege tanks Albanese has managed to build up. I guess technically by this army comp he can tell what production facilities Terra might have, but it really would just be a lot easier for him to go in and see for himself rather than having to infer based on the army. Expansion up and running now for both players, I do believe. Not saturated obviously, but definitely underway. We see a robotics bay down, probably see some colossi out of there. Look at me, I am magic. Why else did you get a robotics bay? You may ask me. Well, there is no other reason other than colossi, which means that Korvan, or Blue Protoss, still believes that Terran is going bio, or at least decently heavy bio. Obviously, he hasn't quite read this unit comp right, and if he just scouted up here, he'd be able to see factories, double factories pumping out siege tanks like there's no tomorrow. Twilight Council researching Blake now for the Stalkers, approximately half done. Definitely, well, Blink's always a good idea. Can't ever go wrong with Blink. If you can ever find the extra minerals and gas, Blink can help you. It can actually save an army. If you have a heavy stalker army like this one is, it can save you by blinking away stalkers if you have good enough micro. Observe us following the massing Terran army out here. Mostly Marines and tanks, only a couple Marauders thrown into the mix. Both are actually doing a fairly good job of keeping the resources down, although both are currently supply blocked, I do believe. See a tank out here that's going to pick off the one probe that's been on that tower for roughly 7 minutes now in game time. His job has been accomplished, and the Protoss are very thankful to him. We do see a pretty fearsome sentry count here. Easy force fields and guardian shields. These tanks are not going to be able to see a whole bunch. One falls, the other one gets down to about half health. No SCVs in here to repair, but with so many tanks, if you can get them sieged up, they can just blast away ceaselessly at this army. Protoss not really in a position to get hit right now, though. One immortal out. He needs way more immortals to deal with his tank count. And here comes the confrontation. Blink is done, but he doesn't manage to blink away in any stalkers, actually. Don't know how many fell there. We see a Colossi being engaged up front. Scan goes down by the Terran to get vision on the high ground. Colossi doesn't fall. Immortal just about does. Obviously, we realize what the focus fire of the Terran was by on that confrontation. Terran army content just to sit out here and wait. He'll be able to siege his tanks up from afar and scan to get vision, but actually he's going to move right in and here. Stim goes down. See his tanks hopefully siege up. Force field down. Doesn't do anything, really. That force field is horribly placed. His tanks are not sieging up. Now they are all sieging up and will blast away at this Protoss army, and I don't see that this blinks a couple stalkers back up here, but this will not gain him an advantage at all. This army is just going to sit through and clean up this Protoss, and I imagine this would have to be GG. These probes are going to get massacred as they try and get back to their own base. Poor little guys. They have a union, but they have no protection. And there is the GG, and this game is over. Thank you very much for listening to the beautiful sound of my voice, guys. I hope you enjoyed this cast. This has been Kopo, and I will be talking to you guys later.